What is up, Planeswalkers? Theric6 back with some more Magic the Gathering Commander deck techs. Be sure to go to Flipside Gaming and use promo code 6 for 10% off on orders over $10. This weekend is the St. Patrick's Day sale, in which the code 6 will be worth 15% off on orders over $10, and they still have the sweet $7.99 Dragon Shields, as well as pre-orders for both War for the Spark and Modern Horizons. Now, today, of course, is another of our Commander deck techs. I will say that after this one, it's not likely we're going to be doing every week. We probably are going to do like maybe once a month, because these are the only 4 decks that I have in real life. The rest are essentially just lists online, but this is one of, I mean, all 4 of these are really important to me, but I think this is one of my most favorites because it's the one I had with me the longest time. It started out as an Angels and Soldiers deck, and it over time just morphed into various different things. It was a heavy equipment deck at one point, and now it is the Death and Taxes style of deck. So essentially the point of this deck is to play several just annoying creatures and annoying effects that just cause your opponents who are playing EDH to not be able to execute their game plan as easily as they otherwise would if you weren't at the table. And while doing so, you set up this board of just hard to deal with creatures and enchantments and artifacts and things like that, and you just slowly kill them over time. It's the Death and Taxes of EDH. Now, of course, there are several cards I probably could be running, several cards I probably should be running, but for whatever reason, I don't have those. And some of the cards that are in this deck currently, as will be showcased here, are not in the deck because of price reasons. So our general 8.5 Tails is a fantastic 2-mana 2/2. It is the quintessential bear, except it's a Fox Cleric. Shut up. So it's a really nice Death and Taxes style thing, and you're able to activate 8.5 Tails for 2 mana to give a permanent you control protection of white. Now, if your opponent is just playing white anyway, this comes in handy, but usually what's going to happen is that you turn one of your opponent's spells or permanents into white and make it so that your creature can no longer be targeted, dealt damage, equipped or enchanted, or blocked by any of their things. What's really helpful is that if your opponent ends up trying to target something that you want, you can just turn that spell white, and they can give your creature protection from white, which is very just utility based, very fantastic. Even Mind Sensor, one of those tax effects, you can flash this in, and it's a nice 2/1 flyer, and then if your opponent would search their library, they search the top 4 instead. Now, many decks play ramp spells, and these are specifically ramp spells that search their library. So if you're able to, say, play this in response to like their 4-mana ramp spell or something, they're going to potentially just completely whiff on that. And that is going to be a heavy drawback for that player. And it's not just that player that's going to be affected. Now, the rest of your opponents at the table are going to have to keep Mind Sensor in mind until or unless they are able to get rid of it. And luckily, this is not, for both sides, I can't remember the word that I'm looking for, but this only affects opponents, so that's very nice. It's not, oh gosh, what is the word? Who cares? Angel Serenity, a fantastic angel flyer. There's still like kind of an Angel Slum theme here, but the reason she's fantastic is because you can exile up to 3 target creatures from the battlefield or creatures in the graveyard. And what's really nice is that when she leaves the battlefield, return those exiled cards to their owner's hand. So what you can do with this is you can have a range of removal as well as ways to get cards back, because Angel Serenity doesn't need to die, she just needs to leave the battlefield. So if you target 2 really annoying creatures that your opponents have, let's hope they don't have cast or ETB triggers, and then you target a creature in your graveyard that you really want back, then not only are your opponents going to be wanting to kill Angel of Serenity to get their creatures back into their hands, but they're going to not want to do that if they're going to give you that creature that you wanted to get back from your graveyard. Abzan, Angel of Hope, the sweet foily version, because she is bae. Ironically, I'm not using the Abzan playmat right now because I figured the white on white would be a little bit too much. So, Abzan, she makes all of your permanents indestructible. It's fantastic. She's indestructible herself. It really forces the players at the table to try and find better workarounds. But she essentially makes it so that your tax effects are going to stay around longer. She is rather expensive, but who cares? We're playing mono white. They're totally known for ramp. Angel of Jubilation, kind of a nice death taxi effect. It pumps our other non-black creatures, since none of our creatures are black. Pumps all of our creatures. And players can't pay life or sacrifice creatures to cast spells or activate abilities. Now, this is very important against several types of decks. So, decks that are going to try and use things like, Goblin Bombardment style things, Attrition is another thing. They can't sacrifice those cards. And additionally, they can't pay life. So if someone's trying to wipe your board with Toxic Deluge to get around Abzan, they can't do that. So that's very helpful in EDH, where plenty of people are constantly sacking creatures and paying life. For what it's worth, that also means that they can't they can't activate their fetch lands, the actual like Onslaught and Khans block fetch lands. I guess it's technically Onslaught and Zendikar, who cares? Angel Finality is, once again, another angel, and she has, whenever she enters the battlefield, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. EDH is a format where plenty of people utilize their graveyard for a large number of things, and Angel Finality essentially is like our rest in peace that allows us to still use our graveyard, but allows us to hate on other people's graveyards. And typically, as long as you're playing in like a balanced play group, only one player is really going to be utilizing their graveyard a lot. So you can just target that player, get a lot of nonsense out of their game plan, and still have a nice 3/4 flyer to come with it. Alms Collector has Flash, which is really nice. Also, it's 4 mana 3/4. It's not a great body, but most of the bodies in Death and Taxes aren't very great. If an opponent would draw 2 or more cards, instead you draw, and that player draws. So let's say your opponent has a Consecrated Sphinx, right? At the beginning of, let's say, a third player's turn, they draw. Their Consecrated Sphinx triggers. Instead of them getting 2 cards, I get a card, and they get 1 card. Now, of course, that does mean that they can trigger their Consecrated Sphinx again, but every time they draw a card, I draw a card. For what it's worth, I don't get to choose when that doesn't occur. I believe Consecrated Sphinx is the only main interaction there, but this works really well with other mass draw spells, things like, what is the darn word I'm looking for? Blue Sun Zenith, there we go. Archangel of Tithes, another angel, who would have thought, and she has a nice tax effect. As long as she's untapped, creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless your opponent pays 1, so that's a kind of a mini propaganda effect. But what's really nice is that when you're attacking, players can't block unless they pay 1 for each of those creatures. So this is a really nice way to, let's say you're holding the fort down for a bit, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I have a sizable enough board, I need to get in there to attack, and this just really messes up your opponent's math. Recruit of the Guard is just a fantastic card. I actually spent a decent-ish amount of money to get this card because I thought it was so important. Also, because I do plan on building Legacy Death and Taxes in real life. I have it online, but to play it in real life at some point, so I need these. But when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with Toughness 2 or less, reveal and put in your hand. Now, there are plenty of things that have Toughness 2 or less. I'm looking, of course, none of these angels do, but there are plenty of creatures that we have that have Toughness 2 or less that just allow us to get the special effects that we need. For example, the Aven Mind Sensor. If we really need to get that Aven Mind Sensor down, because we know someone's going to start searching, maybe they're going to play, I think it's Paradox Engine that searches, then we can go ahead and search for that. Baneslayer Angel. It's a 5 mana 5/5 flying first strike lifelink protection from demons and dragons. Why would you never play? Baneslayer Angel is great. Don't at me. Boreas Charger is one of those creatures we can get, and it's a 3 mana 2/1 flyer. When it leaves the battlefield, so it's not on enter, it's luckily not on dies, it's when it leaves the battlefield, an opponent who controls, choose an opponent who controls more lands than you, search your library for a number of planes equal to the difference. Notice this does not say basic planes, so you can get other planes like Mistveil planes. Equal to the difference, reveal them, and put 1 into the battlefield and the rest into your hand. So this is a very nice way for green, or for mono white, to get a bit of ramp. We do have plenty of other ways in the deck. Luckily, they've been ameliorating white's land issues in EDH somewhat, but white is still definitely one of the weaker colors in EDH because they have like the weakest ramp and the weakest draw. That said, Boreas Charger, really, really nice. We can get it killed ourselves because it doesn't have to die, it just has to leave the battlefield. So we very easily, if we have a green player at the table, we'll be able to get a sizable number of lands to start playing. Bounty Agent, 2 mana, 2/2. So we can fetch it up. Vigilance, sacrifice it, destroy target legendary permanent that's an artifact, creature, enchantment. This just gets to kill commanders. Now, of course, it does have to sacrifice itself, but when you have things like Sun Titan in the deck, Revel Arc and things like that, which we will of course get to, you are potentially going to be able to play this card at least a couple times during a game, and being able to just outright kill one of your opponent's creatures, or even just the threat of killing one of your opponent's creatures, can give you a lot of political advantage, and it can give you a lot of kind of tempo advantage because you still have a bear that can beat down. Elish Norn. I love Elish Norn. I don't know if you noticed, but I love the Phyrexians. Elish Norn is probably my favorite, followed by Jin Gitaxias. Now, Elish Norn, she costs a lot, but she has a sweet effect, man. 4/7 Vigilance, that's a fine stat line. Other creatures you control get +2/+2, that's a buff right there. And creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. That's a total swing of 4 points of power and toughness between your creatures and your opponent's creatures. This is just a fantastic effect for dealing with token swarms, and just buffing your creatures so that they can get in for combat damage. Hushwing Gryff, another card that we can get, has Flash, 3 mana 2/1 flyer, very nice. Creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Now, for what it's worth, this does include your creatures. However, we have fewer ETB triggers than otherwise. And there are plenty of decks in the game that have a lot of ETB triggers. And what's really important for me when choosing this over Torpor Orb is the fact that even though Torpor Orb is not necessarily as easy to remove as Hushwing Gryff is, Hushwing Gryff can attack, and that's what I really like. Of course, the evasion of flying is not as important and powerful in EDH because the sheer number of flyers in the format, but it still does help a little. Intrepid Hero, something we can get, destroys a creature with power 4 or greater. This is a repeatable effect, and I freaking love this card. It's, probably not strictly the strongest card, but it's great, and I love it, so shut up. You can equip it with a Swiftfoot Boots and make it so it's really difficult for your opponents to deal with this card, and it just makes it so that even though your creatures aren't technically going to be very large, you can make it so your opponent's creatures aren't either. Linvala, one of the more annoying creatures in this deck, 4 mana, 3/4 flyer, decent stats. Activated abilities of creatures your opponent control can't be activated. This includes, I believe, mana abilities. Your opponent's creatures just can't do stuff anymore. So if your opponent is trying to do some sort of weird combo shenanigans with, I want to say there's a weird combo with a blue creature that taps to take an extra turn. Can't do that anymore. No, go away. Go all the way away. Very, very nice. Very, very annoying. Lockdown Gatekeeper, another just super annoying card. 4 mana, 2/3. Artifact creatures and lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. I mean, forcing your opponent's mana rocks and their lands to come in tapped slows them down significantly. Their creatures coming in tapped can matter sometimes if you're up against a super hasty deck. Cough, cough, goblins. Amazonian Y. But just the fact that you're able to also have their creatures come in tapped and attack them without them being able to block as efficiently because their creatures in tapped is very, very helpful. Loyal Unicorn, a sweet lieutenant card, 4 mana, 3/4 vigilance at the beginning of your combat. If you control your commander, which we can easily do since it only costs 2 mana, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to creatures you control this turn. Other creatures you control gain vigilance. So what's really great is that you just leave your commander and your Loyal Unicorn back because you don't care, and the rest of your creatures get to attack with impunity. They get vigilance, so you don't have to worry about not being able to block and dying, and combat damage just prevented to creatures that you control that are attacking. It's just so good. It's just a big F you. I'm gonna attack you. You can't do anything about it. Revelark. I need to, like, my hand is mostly in focus, but the cards kind of aren't. I'm still working with the setup, right? Revelark, 5 mana, 4/3 flyer. When it leaves play, so once again, this is not an ETB or a dice trigger, which is very helpful. Return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to play. Now, once again, we don't run a ton of creatures with power 2 or less, but we run enough that this effect is very helpful. Especially since sometimes we can choose when to get that effect by casting it for its evoke cost, where it will immediately die. So that's very nice. It also flies for what it's worth. Selfless Squire, one of those cool, interesting cards that Revelark does work with, but unfortunately, of course, Selfless Squire kind of needs you to do this at instant speed. 4 mana, 1/1, we can get it with Recruiter, which is nice. Flash, when it enters the battlefield, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. Of note, this does not prevent damage to your creatures or your planeswalkers, but it does prevent damage to you. And then, all of that damage that got prevented, you put that number of 1/1 counters on Selfless Squire. This just gets to be a fog effect that can also attack your opponent. So let's say it's down to you and the last player, right? And then they're like, well, you don't have a very good board. I don't plan on dying. Maybe they're at like 15 or something. They attack you for lethal. You flash in Selfless Squire. You get a giant 16/16, and now you're able to attack them for lethal. That's just one of the sweet plays that you can get with Selfless Squire. Solemn Simulacrum. It kind of solves 2 of Mono White's worst issue. It allows you to ramp, getting planes into your battlefield, and it draws you a card when it dies. It's helpful. Spirit of the Labyrinth. Each player can't draw more than 1 card each turn. Now, because typically white decks are only going to be drawing 1 spell a turn, not every other deck is going to play by those rules. So we use Spirit of the Labyrinth to enforce that. What's really nice with Alms Collector, and I think it's important enough to note, is that Alms Collector happens usually on when your opponent's turn happens. So this says they can't draw more than 1 card each turn. So let's say you have an Alms Collector out, and then they kill your Alms Collector, and you're like, all right, well, I'll go ahead and play Spirit of the Labyrinth then. Bye-bye. You still don't get to have cards. If you don't let me have cards, you don't get cards either. Stoneforge Mystic. We're playing a number of decent equipment in this deck. We like to get them, and, she gets to put it out for free. She essentially is just a tutor for an equipment. Sun Titan. We can get back target permanents with converted mana cost 3 or less. Now, Of note, we have Strip Mine in this deck, so we can theoretically just continually blow up our opponent's lands. It's not the nicest thing to do, but we're playing Death and Taxes. We're not trying to be nice. Thalia, Heretic, Cathar. Not my favorite Thalia. I do like Guardian of Thraben a little bit more. But Guardian of Thraben not as good in EDH as Thalia, Heretic, Cathar is, because creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control on the battlefield tapped. As we said with Lockdown Gatekeeper, that is a really good effect. Weathered Wayfarer, one of my favorite cards in this deck because it allows us to fix our mana. So we're going to be able to search our library for any land card. It doesn't have to be a basic, it's just any land card. And yes, I'm doing this live because sue me. Reveal it and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Only if your opponent controls more lands than you. What's really nice is that even if you go first, you can theoretically have an opponent who played like a 2-mana ramp spell, or maybe they've gone to a 3, and get this effect rather early to get one of those really specific lands that you want pretty much every game. Twilight Shepherd is, you might be saying, in the wrong place because I've been doing this in alphabetical order, and you'd be correct, but Twilight Shepherd is essentially a placeholder card. Unfortunately, I had to sell my Wormcoil engine while I was in Philadelphia because I needed to pay some bills, and I couldn't justify buying it back for this deck, so I put Twilight Shepherd in. Twilight Shepherd is helpful because it returns all of the things that have died this turn, or sorry, all of the permanents that have died to your hand, which is really nice. I just realized this said all cards. Oh, from battlefield. All right, that's fine. I'm dumb. I can't read. Yeah, so all of your permanents that have gone from the battlefield to your graveyard, you can get them back. And what's really helpful is that she has persist. So typically, what you're going to use this for is you're going to play her out, and then if someone wipes the board, maybe even if it's you, she'll come back to the battlefield as a 4/4, and you'll be able to go ahead and get all of those creatures that have died back into your hand. What's a thing that you could do is if you're able to get her to die at a certain point, let's say somehow you're able to sacrifice her, you can cast Catastrophe, destroying all lands, and then sacrifice her in response. Well, I guess you could technically do it at the end of the turn, but sacrifice her by the time that you're able to get this effect to trigger, and then you get all your lands back. It's really fun. Going on to our enchantments, Aura of Silence is just an annoying way to get opponents to have their artifact enchantments cost more. And then you, at any point, can just destroy an artifact or enchantment. Essentially, what this is in the deck for is stopping, one, it's slowing down really annoying enchantments like Grave Betrayal and things like that. But also, it turns their artifact ramp spells into, like, garbage, right? Like, a Thran Dynamo costing 6 is not as good as a Thran Dynamo that only costs 4. Blind Obedience. Artifacts and creatures enter the battlefield tap. It's similar to the other cards that we've been playing, but what's really nice about this is it has Extort, so this is a nice way that we can just keep draining our opponents, slowly killing them, because that's the Death and Taxes way. Darktooth Mutation, I freaking love this enchantment. It pretty much reads turn a commander into a blocker for the rest of time. It's just so fun. Endless Horizons is my main way of making sure I can hit all of my land drops. It's not ramp per se, but it does guarantee us to be able to play lands pretty much every turn. What I end up doing is, depending of course on what colors I'm playing against, if my opponents are likely to have enchantment removal, I will probably get about 45% of my basics that are left, because usually you're not going to need to get all of them, and you want to make sure that you still have some lands left in the deck, just in case terrible things happen. But if your opponents just like aren't playing enchantment removal, maybe they're just not playing the colors for it or whatever, you can just get all of your planes, and then you don't have to worry about top-decking the lands anymore, and that is always nice. Ghostly Prison. It makes it so our opponents are less likely to attack us. Yay! Grasp of Fate. For each opponent, you get to exile one of their non-land permanents until it leaves. That's very helpful. Unfortunately, of course, it does mean that people are very incentivized to destroy this, and they can use it as a political tool, but you can use this as a political tool by having each of your opponents choose the exact permanent that gets removed. So let's say we're playing in a 4-player game. I have person A, B, and C. I ask person B and C what they think I should get rid from A, and then B from I ask A and C, and then for C I ask A and B. And now the burden is lessened on me, and they can squabble amongst themselves. Luminarch Ascension. It's a win condition, because essentially if you can get this out like turn 1, that's 3 turns, right, before you get to your next turn. Did I say turn 1? I meant turn 2. Whatever. That's 3 turns before you get to this, putting 3 counters on it, and you only need 4 counters. So at the end of this opponent's turn, if they haven't attacked you, you get to start using Luminarch Ascension, and 2 mana for a 4/4 Angel, pretty dang good. Marshal's Anthem is a decent battlefield pump effect, but the really important thing is this has multi-kicker for 2 total mana, and what it allows you to do is just get back X number of creatures, or actually the number of times this has been kicked, from the graveyard to the battlefield. So if you are missing several things and you're in the late game when you have like 10 mana, right, you're able to get back 3 creatures of your choice. Let's say that's a Sun Titan, a Twilight Shepherd, and an Alms Collector, right? Then with Sun Titan, you can get another creature back. Alms Collector means that you're going to be able to draw more cards if you are really running low on them. Very, very helpful. Smothering Tide is something that I'm testing. I haven't actually played with it in the deck just yet, but I assume it's going to be rather decent because, as I said, in EDH, plenty of people just draw a ton of lands. Or, sorry, just draw a ton of cards. And they're not going to want to spend their mana to pay for this effect. So you're going to be able to accrue potentially a large amount of tokens. Now, all of these tokens are just the treasure tokens. I'm thinking about trying to figure out ways, like more ways in the deck to abuse these tokens if it turns out that Smothering Tithe is worth like having that much dedication to the deck. But other than that, I can just use these treasure to just pay for other things that I might need to pay for. And then of course we get on to our artifacts. Batterskull. It's a good enchantment because in EDH, this is a pretty easy thing to bounce to your hand and then recast in order to get like pretty much a really resilient 4/4 Vigilance lifelink creature. You can also just pay a bunch to attach it to one of your angels, for example, and just start beating in real hard. Endless Atlas is probably the best card that mono white decks have seen in actual years for EDH, because mono white decks tend to play a large amount of basic planes. Now, of course, this does work with the other monocolor decks, but many of the other monocolor decks have other ways to draw cards. Mono white really doesn't. So you're able to just pay 2 and draw a card. The only stipulation is that you have to control 3 more lands with the same name. We play plenty of planes. We're almost always going to be able to do this, and being able to just pay 2 and draw a card, I can't explain how important that is for mono white decks. Of course, this is tap, but who cares? Mind Stone is technically my stand-in for Sol Ring. I hate Sol Ring, so as long as I'm not playing with people who play Sol Ring, I play Mind Stone. If I am playing with people who play Sol Ring, I swap Mind Stone out for Sol Ring because, yes, it is a better card, but I don't like it, so I don't play it if I can't, or if I can choose not to. Sacrifice, Mind Stone, draw a card. It's helpful. Sometimes you don't need the mana, sometimes you need that. A nice way to filter the top of our library is with Sensi's Divining Top. Now, I should note that this card can have problems and draw ire if you're too slow about it. You really want to plan out your turns ahead. You really need to be engaged in the game to know exactly what you're going to want to look for out of those top 3 cards. And you want to, something you might want to do is say, hey, I'm going to be topping at the end of my opponent's turn, but you just do it now, and then say, hey, if something changes, I should reserve the right to change the top 3 cards, but I'm just letting you know now so I can do it and not waste everyone's time at the end of player C's turn, right? And of course, you can save Sensi's Top by drawing a card, or you can draw that card if you need it. One of the things you can do is set up Terminus with this. That's a common thing to do in Legacy Miracles. You set up Terminus, and then you draw this. Is it in Miracles? Did they play Top? I don't remember. Who cares? But yeah, so then you set it up, and then you draw with Top on your opponent's turn. Terminus. It's fantastic. Straticide. I like Straticide. Don't judge me. We're running a lot of planes. This counts other basics as well. So it's just a fun way to get Chungus. I should probably remove this for something else, but I just like it. It's been in the deck for a really long time. Swiftfoot Boots. The reason we are using Swiftfoot Boots and not Lightning Greaves is that 8.5 Tails targets our own creatures, so we want to be able to give them protection if something strange happens. So for example, let's say your opponent casts Blasphemous Act. If you want to save the creature that's under the boots, then you can do so because you can give it protection from white, and you can make Blast Act white. But if you have Greaves on it, you can't target your creature with your own card because Shroud makes it so that you can't target your own creatures either. So that's why we're running Boots instead of Lightning Greaves. We could possibly run both, but I don't really think it's necessary. Then we have a couple of swords, couple of swords, just a few swords. For what it's worth, technically, this Sword of War and Peace should be a scroll rack, but I don't own a scroll rack. It's a very expensive card. At some point I plan on getting it. I also plan on exchanging this for the new art, and I'm not running Body and Mind because Body and Mind is not good in EDH because milling your opponents very often can lead to some disaster. So, Feast and Famine gets you an untap and forces opponent to discard. Fire and Ice allows you to deal 2 damage to a creature or player and to draw a card. Light and Shadow gives you 3 life and allows you to return a creature, I believe it's just a creature. Return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then War and Peace gains you life equal to the amount of cards in your hand and hits your opponent for life equal to the amount of cards in their hand. Moving on to Umezawa's Jitte. This is a... Oh, I didn't go over the instant sorceries yet. Awkward. I was looking at the cards that I have to talk about that I don't have yet, and I was like, wait, what? Umezawa's Jitte. It's a freaking fantastic card. It's played in freaking Legacy. It's dumb. It's just... it's so dumb. When you deal combat damage, not to a player, it doesn't have to be like, has to be to a creature, it's just any combat damage. You can be blocking and still combat damage. You get 2 charge counters. 2. Count them 2. And then you can remove 1 charge counter to do one of 3 things. Give the creature that's equipped to it +2/+2. Give any creature -1/-1. This can be unequipped to use that one, and it can be unequipped to use the next one. Gain 2 life. So let's say your opponent, there's no creatures on the board right now, and someone decides to blow up all artifacts. You can just gain like 4 life if you have 2 counters on this. It's ridiculous. Of course, now we get to the sorceries, and what a better one to start on than Approach the Second Sun. This is a win condition, right? Mono white sometimes has difficulty ending games. It doesn't have as many flashy turns that some of the other decks can do, so we run Approach the Second Sun. I was really happy when this card got printed because it allows me to just say, hey, I'm gonna go and cast this. We don't have a good way to draw very quickly, but sometimes we will, and other times we can just try and wait. We're going to cast this in a turn where we're likely to survive, so yeah, cast it, wait a few turns, and then bing bang boom, we win. Austere Command, my most played card in EDH. It destroys things that I need it to destroy. Artifacts, enchantments, small creatures, big creatures. I get to choose 2 of those. Catastrophe. The card people in Dark Souls are probably not going to like to see. I can choose to destroy all creatures or all lands. Creatures destroyed this way can't be regenerated. Now, I would say that 9 out of 10 times, I use this as a board wipe. Just a normal destroy all creatures. But if I'm in a pod of people where 2 of the players are going turn 2 ramp, turn 3 ramp, turn 4 ramp, turn 5 ramp, and they've done nothing else, like for the rest of that beginning portion of the game, I've been setting up with my creatures, right? I've been starting to play value creatures, maybe some annoying creatures that cause my opponent's lands to come in tapped. They've just been ramping. They have no board. I'm going to blow up the lands. And the reason I'm going to blow up the lands is twofold. One, they don't currently have access to creatures on the board. I can attack them with impunity. And 2, they've been ramping so much, they've been digging land cards out of their graveyard, and now it's going to be harder for them to come back. And now people might say, well, mass land destruction is just not fun, it's really boring. But my response is, all right, well, if my opponent goes like 4 or 5 ramps, or 4 or 5 turns just ramping, and I've been trying to like play this interactive game and they've done nothing, and then on their 6th or 7th turn, they just play like a kick tooth and nail, and then they just combo win the game. I'm like, all right, that's also boring. I'm going to do my best with Death and Taxes to say, hey, you're doing things that I don't like, go away. As I said, typically 9 in 10 times normal board wipe. Cleansing Nova. Sometimes you have a better creature board, but your opponents have a bunch of artifacts and enchantments. Blow them up. Just blow them up. I like Cleansing Nova because it's flexible. I can see it getting changed out for sure, but for right now, I really do like Nova. Council's Judgment is a sweet 3-mana sorcery, and then you just get to vote for an online permanent that you don't control, which is very important. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tied for the most votes. So let's say, once again, we're in a 4-player game. You want to get rid of something. You have to devise a plan for making sure that thing is gotten rid of, or 2 things are gotten rid of. So let's say that person B really hates person A, right? Person A really hates person B. Person C, probably fine either way, but they're not doing very good. What you could do is you can target person B with your vote, and then person A is pretty much guaranteed to target person B with their vote. Now, as of right now, you're already getting what you want, but person B, they don't want their thing to get exiled, so they're going to target person A. Now, if you can convince person C to vote for person A's thing, they'll be in a better position because 2 things got exiled instead of just 1, right? So this is a nice way of getting some vindictiveness into the game, and I really do like Will of the Council cards. I really hope that they print more things like that. I really like the voting mechanic. I really like when EDH is really political. And Treat the Angels. You never want to cast this for its normal casting cost. It's fine if you do, but when you miracle this, late in the game, ooh, it feels nice. And you can set this up with Sensitive Divining Top. So let's say that you have it on top, but you don't have the mana yet. You can just keep putting it at the bottom, at the third one. You just keep doing that and cycle until you're like, all right, I have plenty of lands now. I'm going to go and blow up the world. Speaking of blow up the world, Martial Coup is a fantastic board wipe that gives you creatures. As long as X is 5 or more, which it pretty much always is going to be. Destroy all creatures except for those soldier tokens that you made. It's a fantastic way to remain on the board. Route, the reason Route is in the deck is because you can pay a little bit more mana to have it cast an instant. This can functionally save you from dying because you can do it in response to like people attacking and things like that. But also, you can just play it for 5 on your turn. And the flexibility of this being able to cast for instant is why it is 5 mana to start with. Otherwise, it would just be a better Wrath of God. Now, the reason I run this over Wrath of God is for that flexibility, and I'm fine paying 5 normally for the effect. Also, it has freaking Alishnor. Look at that. Comeuppance. Another way to save yourself from dying. As you might know, this deck has plenty of ways to not die, because people aren't going to be a fan of you if you play this deck. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and Planeswalkers you control this turn by sources you don't control. If damage from a creature is prevented this way, Comeuppance deals that much damage to that creature. If damage from a non-creature source is prevented this way, Comeuppance deals that much damage to the source's controller. So let's say you have an opponent who decided to, I don't know, set up the game by making a ton of mana, and then they Banefire you for functionally infinite. You just be like, nah, I'm gonna go and cast Comeuppance. You die, actually. It's always fun to do. Also, it's called Comeuppance, like, come on. Return to Dust. It's artifact and enchantment removal. You almost always just play this at sorcerer speed unless there's really something that is frustrating you that could win the game on the spot. You just use that at sorcerer speed and get rid of 2 artifacts or enchantments, and the fact that they get exiled is very helpful. Swords to Plowshares. Ooh, and it's all shiny. Swords is just like the best single target removal for creatures. Gaining life is usually not going to be that big a deal in a format where you already start with 40. Terminus technically isn't supposed to be Terminus. Terminus is supposed to be Teferi's Protection. That card costs too much damn money. So I don't have it. So instead I have Terminus. Right now, Terminus you can set up things and like save yourself, but technically Teferi's Protection is a little bit better. Okay, it's a lot bit better. Then we move on to our Planeswalkers. Elspeth, Knight Errant. She's a nice 4 mana 4/4 with 4 mana 4 loyalty Planeswalker with 2 possibilities and the -8 that gives you essentially Avacyn's effect. And the fact that it's an emblem means that it can't really be dealt with. So if you're able to get this out on turn 4, or let's be in magical annoying Christmas land where you're playing with Sol Ring and then you play a turn 1 Plains and a Sol Ring, and then in turn 2 Plains into Elspeth. I'm losing my mind thinking about Sol Ring. Then your opponents are going to have a really freaking hard time dealing with Elspeth before she's able to ultimate. Because you play her on the first turn, right? Let's say this is turn 2. You plus her to 5 on that first turn, and you have a creature. Then you plus her to 6, then to 7, then to 8. Then you ultimate her. You've ultimated on turn 6. Which, you might be saying, well, that's not very fast. It is. It is. Elspeth, Sun's Champion. 6, it just gives you so much value, dude. +1 to make an army. -3 to destroy opposing armies. And -7 to make your army huge. I freaking love this dang card. Awkward. Gideon Jura saves your ass. +2 makes it so a certain opponent just has to attack Gideon, and you're just like, I'm gonna not die this turn. -2 allows you to destroy a tapped creature, and if you have to, you can turn Gideon into a Chad and just go in swinging. Nahiri is meant to be Big Karn, or Karn Liberated, as some people know him. But once again, I had to sell that when I was in Philly, and I didn't want to buy it again. I'm hoping it gets reprint at some point. I had no idea where it would because Modern Horizons has no modern reprints, but it's fine. Nahiri is okay. She probably should be something else, but it's whatever. I like her ultimate. You never get there. She's just fun. That's why she's here in replacement. Conqueror's Galleon. You might be saying this isn't in the artifact section. You're right, because this is supposed to be Dominaria Karn. I'm gonna wait until after rotation to get Dominaria Karn because its price essentially is inflated because it's played in standard, but it's not played in too many other places, so I figured I would just wait. And for right now, Conqueror's Galleon is fine. If you are able to attack with it and it survives, it transforms into a land. That gives you a bit of advantage. You can loot, you can just draw a card for 4, which is a bit excessive, or you can return a card, any card from your graveyard to your hand, which is really, really nice. And that, I assume, is what I'm going to be using most for. As this card as well is one of the cards I haven't actually gotten a chance to play with yet. So Arch of Araska, getting into the lands, is another helpful way for mono white to draw cards. It's not terrible. Buried Ruin, we have some artifacts that we would like to use over and over again, so we're going to have that. Dead of the True, cycles. It's pretty much it, it cycles. Drifting Meadow, fun fact, it cycles. So sometimes, if we have too many lands, we get rid of it. Iganjo Castle prevents 2 damage that would be dealt to target legendary creature. It's probably not even necessary in the deck, but I like it, so, you know, it maybe can come in handy. Emeria the Sky Ruin allows you to just get creatures back once you have 7 or more planes, and that is, that's real nice. Getting a free, like, reanimation spell. Ghost Quarter. It sacrifice destroy lands. Or yeah, it's great. They get to search for a basic card or a basic land, but sometimes they don't have very many basics. Other times you'll have a Sun Titan and you just start ghost courting them all over the place. It's good. Targeted land removal is important. Homeward Path. If this is usually not used on our creatures. If someone else casts like Insurrection or something, and like there's a player who has a bunch of Chads, a bunch of Chungus, a Chungai, excuse me. Homeward Path is just like, nah, dude, no, go away. This Plains is not supposed to be Plains. It's supposed to be a Inkmoth Nexus. Fun fact, I don't know if you can guess, I had to sell those when I was in Philly, so I don't have them anymore. But the plan with Inkmoth Nexus is typically as another win condition. So you have a number of swords. You can activate Inkmoth Nexus, equip up some swords, and just try and infect kill your opponents. Core Haven. It prevents damage by 1 Chungus. It's a really nice way to stay in the game. You could argue that it should just be Maze of Ith, but Core Haven is more flavorful, so back up. Mirrored Landscape, it helps you get more planes. Nykthos, we're playing a mono white deck. We have a decent number of white pips. We're going to be able to get some amount of large mana. Planes, oh look at these, oh my god, these planes. Oh, these planes. Planes. Sound like freaking Squidward when he was in the future. Secluded Step, fun fact, it cycles. That is why it's in the deck. Strip Mine, as I said, targeted land removal is important. Typically, you should, like, you're pretty much always going to say this for a good target, right? You're not going to just shove this off willy-nilly on your opponent's, like, basic land. It's like, oh, they need 2 blue? I'm going to blow up their island. Ooh, no. You're going to say this for a really important land, unless you have Sun Titan out, and then you just go ham, and you just blow up everyone's stuff. And then they kill you for it. Tech Edge, very similar, except that this one does not it has more like clauses attached to it. That said, it's still fine. I don't own Wasteland, so that's why it's not Wasteland. Time of the False God, kind of ramp. Terrain Generator, a really great way to utilize that excess land, those excess planes from Endless Horizons. Windbreast Heights, I can speak words. A hideaway land, except this one is you may play the exiled land if you attacked with 3 more creatures this turn. There are plenty of ways to just have 3 dorks in this deck. Very easy way to get that hideaway source. Now, that is the deck, and of course, I've put my main man around here somewhere. There we go. This is totally a professional video thing. Shut up. This is my channel. I'll do what I want. Yeah, that was 8 Half Tails. I really am excited to play this against Pleasant Kenobi, also known as... Wait, shit. Against Vince, also known as Pleasant Kenobi. on an episode of Dark Souls. It's crazy, man. I've watched Pleasant Kenobi's stuff for a long time, and man, it's surreal being able to interact with all of these people who I've watched for so long. So really look forward to playing that, and for having him to just totally probably destroy me, because I've seen his EDH gameplay, and it is a little bit above what we have on Dark Souls. That said, I really love this deck, and I hope you guys do too. I would like to, of course, thank my lovely patrons, especially Salamander and Croft, for continuing to support the channel. They really allow me to get these cards and do these videos for you guys. I plan on continuing a real-life deck series. Let me know if you guys... Actually, I'm going to put it in the comments. I'm going to put a question in the comments. I'm going to pin it, asking about... oh, I guess it's better to just do it in... Whatever. I'll do a live. Shut up. Oh gosh, if you would like to join them in supporting my absolute madness, you can find links to that in the description down below, along with links to my Discord server where we hang out and play games, and my AHP account where I host all my deck lists, including this one. Yeah, and I really do hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and tap that like button, add a subscription to your mana pool, cast a comment to the comment section down below, and until next time... Oh my gosh, I will be one, but I forgot to tell you to pass the turn in the video. Ah!